A very good morning to all of you. It gives me great pleasure to participate in this IP symposium. That is the structure of my presentation regarding para 4 filings. Without spending too much time on the introduction, I just go to the case studies, which is very important. Para 4 filings normally involve litigation. Para 1 to para 3 involve only FDA approval, technical. Para 4 is the one which makes life interesting, I would say that. Okay, that is where, in my analysis, 3 groups of people come into picture. Of course, the most important is the litigating attorneys who sit in US. But to me, I'm an R&D person. The R&D group and IP group, they contribute a lot. They contribute a lot in the analysis of the patents, because patents are mostly technical, and analysis of the patents, and then what is how do you say that it is non-infringing, or how do you say it is invalidation? So I think this is where I think IP and R&D groups, we work together and try to strengthen the case and try to feed the attorneys when they are litigating. I think that is what is that's what makes para 4 very interesting. This is what it is. The Hatch-Waxman Act 1984. That is a great thing, giving a mechanism for drug companies to introduce their generic products in US. So this is a normal provision, and this is the way it is. Para 1 to para 3 do not involve any litigation, but para 4 does. But normally the patents are classified like that: the active ingredient, the indication ingredient, the indication patents, the formulation patents, and they're published in the Orange Book. That is the Orange Book. And normally the innovator company, they list them in the Orange Book. And if you see, there could be 2 or 3, but nowadays there could be, I think at least I have seen something like 18 or 20 groups of patents. But all they belong to the 3-4 major groups. That is it. And this is all the first application to submit substantially complete, and will get the first to file. And of course, it can be shared. And because of the stakes involved and the commercial implications, that's how the para 4 has become that important. And of course, once it is filed and the company is sued, one of the most important things the generic company follows is to keep the records. Retention records is the most important thing. That is important now, even from the technical FDA point of view. The types of problems you are seeing with the 3-4 major companies in India are because of that the records are not proper. They are not maintained properly, and they call as integrity issues, which is very, very, very serious remark. Technical issues, technical mistakes are all right, but if anything is classified under integrity issue, it's a very, very serious thing. And I think I see a parallel here. I think the policy should be, all records should be kept as long as possible. And of course, this is the grounds for invalidity, non-enforceability is anticipation, obviousness. And these are difficult to prove. Now, that is why, we say that in R&D, non-infringing stand is easy to prove. If you think that your process is different, or polymorph is different, or formulation is different, or particle size is different, you file a patent and prove non-infringement. That is easier than proving this kind of thing, saying that it is an unablement and it is invalidity because of the priorities there. It's extremely difficult, although we have cases to show that, that such things also are valid. So that's what it is. Patents that claim the active ingredients are generally the strongest for obvious reasons. But then there are cases where even the composition of matter of a patent are subject to some kind of a challenge, because probably the patent examiner has not gone into the entire prior art. Probably it is a derivative of some non-natural product, or probably sufficient grounds of inventive step and novelty are not there. And that is where I think the IP and R&D teams come together and try to churn out the entire available literature to see that probably whether the patent examiner has missed out anything. And that is where I think the litigation stands to a great strength. other patents other than the composition of matter of patents, or particular salt forms, particle size, methods of use are also open to challenge. But this is where I think we stand to gain. And that is where you see that, the Section 3D of the Patent Act, it is exactly says this. Who said that Section 3D is absolutely new and it is only for Indian patents and Indian patent office has invented it? No, it is not that. It is not that. Particle size, formulations, or polymorphs are all there, and there are innumerable examples where these patents were invalid, were found invalid, or turned down by either the federal circuit or the district circuit. So non-compound patents challenges are more likely, and they are normally classified as weaker patents, not that strong. So the weak patents, but the reason is there is a logic behind it. Whether it is weak or strong, you have to prove in the court of law that it is weak, and that takes time. So that is exactly the strategy. So even a weak patent gets filed in Orange Book because it takes time to evaluate, and that can slow down the entire litigation process. This is what we call evergreening. So there's a composition of matter patent. So why 18 patents are required where 3 are sufficient? They all belong to the 6 categories or something. That's it. So invalidity arguments, generic drug maker is left contending that the drug was previously disclosed or the patentee engaged in inequitable conduct. These are the arguments which are normally difficult to prove, but people attempt. Given that the pharmaceuticals in the rare industry in which the patents are a direct and central impediment to competition, the weeding out process is something, that is what the litigation is about. Now, if you can weed out these patents and challenge them, and that can make the generic entry in the global or US market earlier than anticipated. So this is what is ex post analysis. The patent examiner has done some analysis, and based on his best judgment, he has given the patent, probably, but ex post analysis will make it stronger because probably he doesn't have the entire means or the mechanisms what the generic companies have while examining these patents. So it's uncertain whether a patent in fact reflects a non-obvious advance or not. The patent examiner has had a predicament how to judge. And if you know that patent examiners don't have the means of laboratories to test something, they have only the documents. They keep asking from the inventor on how this can happen. At the most, there could be some kind of prosecution takes place, and 4 or 5 documents are submitted, and probably the patent examiner at that time is convinced that it is a non-obvious one and there is inventive step, which probably may not be true because we have seen that in our own cases. When the earlier patents are worked out, and where it is not claimed, that leads to a polymorph of the other patent. So if you practice the prior art, that leads to want to conclude that is the product of the latter patent. But that happens only when you go and work in the laboratory and not through documents. You cannot prove it through documents. So this is what is Section 3D of the Act, which says that the salts, esters, ethers, polymers, particle size, isomers. This is very similar to what we fight. Normally polymers and salt we fight in the US court because they are weaker patents. And there are a couple of occasions where, when I come to the case laws, I will tell you that if you practice the prior art and then examine the product, because what happens is the innovator companies, when they give examples and exemplify in the composition of matter patents, they normally won't disclose the characteristics of the product. It is not analyzed, and they say that we got product, that's it. There they stop. But supposing if you analyze it and see the physical properties or physicochemical properties, you end up in finding that the latter patent XIV characteristics match with this, which means that the product is already known. But what it means is it requires hard work, maybe something like 4 months or 5 months, to prove that the earlier composition of matter patents contains, in fact, the polymorph of the latter patents. So this is, I think, on various forums on Indian patent law, we discussed incremental improvement. This is what it is called. The incremental improvements, the composition of matter patent is there, but these fall under incremental innovations. So should we deny these incremental innovations? That is what is debatable. And sometimes that's how the no, you get a mixed response. Sometimes the Federal Circuit reverses the District Circuit's judgment, or sometimes it goes to the Supreme Court. This happens because of that. Another barrier is RAMS barrier. See, the innovator companies always try to, they do not like an early generic entry for obvious reasons. So another one, what the innovator companies have found in recent time, about 40 to 50% of the drugs are covered by the RAMS, risk evaluation and mitigation strategy. And that is what it is also called ETASU elements for safe use. Because some of these drugs are extremely toxic, and they need to be counseled. I think that the patient and the physician, they have to work together on coming out with a proposal and coming out with a structure of how this drug should be adopted or used. Because if it is misused or by mistake or so, that the patient, the wrong patient uses it, or the patient uses it as a wrong dosage form, then the very serious toxic effects can result. Therefore, RAMS is a risk evaluation and mitigation strategy. It is a structure normally the companies submit along with the FDA, and then FDA grants it, and it normally is about 200-page document telling you how to counsel the patient, between the physician and the patient, and then how this drug should be best used without having unduly facing the side effects. But people comment on this, and they say that the brand companies misuse it, saying that no, and misuse it. See, RAMS, if it is confined to a kind of a counseling, it is all right. It is patented. The entire procedure is patented. Therefore, no generic company cannot use it, and they have to come with their own RAMS. And FDA wants it to be the same as that, and if it is same as that, it will be infringing. And if it is not same as that, FDA won't give the approval. So it is now how to come out with this hassle. See, another thing is, once RAMS is established with an earlier drug, how a later drug can again patent it with essentially the same elements. So that is what it is, making this, this kind of litigation or RAMS patents. I would say that from the R&D point of view, extremely interesting, because it raises a lot of emotions and a lot of litigation views. So these are some of the drugs which were $2 billion, $3 billion drugs, and which were involved in Para IV filings, and they got mixed response. And of course, this is some statistics. If you see that from 2001 to 2012, enormously, the number has increased, the drugs involving Para IV litigation. And if you see that the percentage, that the last column, settled 60%, and generic wins 20%, brand wins about 22%. So it's kind of a mixed response. I would say that even settlement is good for the generic companies. So that means that is the way it is tilting. Only 25% is going towards the brand, and 60% are going towards the generic players. And of course, this is some statistics to show that how the sub-classifications of how this litigation has headed towards. And of course, these are some of the companies where the brand companies won. These are some of the blockbuster drugs, and the generic companies won, or some other blockbuster drugs. And this is what it is. Delaware court, New Jersey court, people classify as per the court, and then they say that sometimes the amount, depending on the amount of litigation and number of patents involved, they may take any time between 2 to 3 years. But one thing is the consumer. At the end of it, the consumer gets benefited. The generic drugs have saved consumers something like $700 to $800 million worth. So you know the statistics. Once a brand drug becomes a generic, the price erosion is something like 98% to 99%. So who wins? At the end of it, we can say that it's not R&D, it's not IP, it's not the attorneys, but I think at the end of the day, it is the consumer who gets benefited. Approximately 240 patents are subject to challenge, and I think quickly I mentioned about the cases which our company, NATCO, is involved. This is a Copaxone case, very popular one. It is not yet settled. This is one case where the Federal Circuit has reversed the district court's decision on invalidity, and the appeals court reversed the findings, and then they have classified the entire claims of 4 patents into class 1 and class 2. The first class has gone in favor of generic, and the second favored the brand companies. But that is what went in favor of the generic company. generic player, which is expiring in September of this year. This is called molecular weight patent. And I was sitting in Supreme Court and just trying to watch. It is absolutely fascinating to see how the attorneys and the key witnesses who happen to be specialists in specific fields argue about it. And a lot of mathematics, the ratio whether 6 to 2, 4, and 1.3 is the same as this are not mathematical sleight of hands, normalizing ratios. People, it is absolutely for 4 days, it looks like something like this. And the only difference is people sit on this side are judges, but not scientists or legal attorneys. And debating these issues are absolutely fascinating. And this is what it is. The specializations involved in this particular product is peptide chemistry, polymer technology, molecular weight, physicochemical determination, statistical analysis, gel permeation technique. In each one of these, I have seen at least 3, 4 specialists coming and speaking on that occasion and trying to build up a case, whether it is for brand company or for the generic. And I think the thing is, it has gone to the Supreme Court with a 10-member panel, and it is likely to be referred back to Federal Circuit. Using a different legal standard, it has to be reviewed. We do not know. People say that by end of January or early February, a kind of a decision might come. We are just keeping our fingers crossed on that. Another thing is on the, it's a mineral, lanthanum carbonate. This is what is called technical, legal, technical. The preferred one is non-infringement. The company, it is a Fosrenol, it is a Shire one. They have a tetrahydrate, and our company invented a dihydrate. And it is very, in the litigation,